today we are back as promised with a new set of stories from the continued series of the story that we did last time, Vikram and Baitaal. Right? So before we get started to get to know the new parts, new series into this story, let me give you a brief background on this story, Vikram or Baitaal. So background in this story goes as I'm going to let you know. Vikram and Baitaal, the duo that has been around since a long time, popularly known as Vikram or Baitaal. Originally written in the Sanskrit language, Vikram and Baitaal stories have been an important aspect of Indian fairy tale sagas. The legend behind the series of the story told by Baitaal to Vikram makes for an interesting short stories to learn great lessons. Legend has it that the king of Ujjain, Vikramaditya or Vikram, promises to capture and bring a ghost called Betal to a sage. After confronting Baitaal, the ghost promises to accompany Vikram on one condition. King Vikramaditya must not speak during the journey. Thus begins a series of short stories told by Baitaal to Vikram. And the end of every story has a puzzle which compels King Vikram to break the silence and subsequently Baitaal to fly away. However, in conclusion, the Raja did manage to maintain his silence at the end of the last story and thus succeeded in his quest to get Baitaal to the sage. Vikram and Baitaal stories are a series of compelling stories with a puzzle at the end of each story. Entertainment aside, it will compel you and your child both to try and solve some puzzles as well. So, let's get started. So, I shall recapitulate the part 4 that we did in our last episode. Part 4 was King Vikramaditya finally finds Baitaal. So on the next moonless night, King Vikramaditya went to the forest. After looking for hours, King Vikramaditya found the peepal tree. He pulled the corpse down, placed it on his shoulder, and started for his kingdom to give the corpse to the hermit. As King Vikramaditya travelled some distance, he heard a voice. It was the ghost in the corpse which spoke to him. Who are you, and why and where are you taking me? The king replied, I have come to take you to my kingdom. The ghost asked, why? And who told you about me? The king replied, a hermit told me about you. He needs you. But who are you? The ghost replied, my name is Baitaal. I am prepared to go with you, but there is one condition. Tell me, ordered King Vikramaditya. Baitaal said, during the journey, I will tell you a story to pass the time. Now let's see, children, what the story is. So the part 5 of the story is Baitaal's condition. Baitaal continued, but I have a condition. You will not utter a word till you have arrived at your destination. If you speak on the way, I will fly back to my peepal tree. King Vikramaditya agreed to the condition immediately. Baitaal continued, during my travels, I recount to have heard that you are the most sensible king ruling your kingdom. Now listen carefully to the story I'm going to tell you. You will have to answer my questions. Also, regarding the story, if you deliberately evade answering my questions, I will break your head into pieces, the king replied. Baitaal, as you know, truth always prevails. I promise to not let you down. I am prepared to hear your story. Baitaal responded, I expect you to keep your word. Saying so, Baitaal began the story. Now let's see what the story is. So the part 6 is the Fair King. The city of Andhak was ruled by a very righteous king. He personally looked into the affairs of his people. He listened to their complaints and redressed them as well. People were free to visit his court whenever they wished. They could express themselves. One day, the old man came to the king's court. He was accompanied by his two blind sons. The king asked, "What brings you to the court?" "Your Highness, due to some unfortunate circumstances, I am leading a life of misery. But in a matter of time, I will regain my lost wealth. However, I would be highly obliged if you could lend me 1,000 gold coins. I will repay this loan as soon as I can. And if you don't, ask the king." The old man promptly replied, "I will leave my sons with you as a guarantee." Part number 7 of Vikram Baitaal, The Old Man. The old man continued, "Sir, my sons are blind, but they are gifted. They will serve you well." The king was surprised. He asked, "How can these blind sons of yours be of any service to me?" The old man replied, "Well, my eldest son is an expert judge of horses, and my younger son can test any kind of jewel." The amazed king said, "But they are blind. How do they perform their tasks?" The old man replied, "They rely on their senses of smell and touch, respectively, to do their jobs. If you ever find any of them giving a wrong judgment, you may have them beheaded," said the old man. "You may also punish me after I have returned." The impressed king took the old man's word. He gave him the 1,000 gold coins he had asked for. He took the two blind sons into his service. Part 8. The Horse Trader. Days went by. One day, a horse trader came to the court to sell a horse to the king. The trader stated that the horse was a good Arabian breed. He boasted that it will be very faithful and will be a good runner too. The king did not wish to buy the horse blindly, so he asked the blind son to check the horse. And then the blind son started examining the horse by touching and smelling it. This made the horse a little furious. He exclaimed, "What a strange way of checking a horse! And how can a blind man examine a horse? You had better stop this. It is nothing but a waste of my time as well as that of the king's." But the blind son calmly said to the king, "Your Majesty, please do not buy this horse. It might hurt you when you ride it." But the trader was angry at hearing this. Part 9. The Blind Son's Revelation. Let's see what's in store now. The king, on the other hand, thought about what the blind son said. Then he commanded, "Let a horse expert ride this horse." So an expert rider sat on the horse. But no sooner did he sit than the horse threw him off its back. The trader was stunned. He exclaimed, "The horse never behaves like that with me." The blind son replied, "What you say is true, but the fact is that the horse does not harm any milkman. Why did you give up your profession?" Horse trader gasped and asked, "How did you know that I was a milkman previously?" The blind son replied, "I found this out by smelling your horse. I could make out that it was born in your house. You fed it on a buffalo's milk. Its parents were also owned by you." The trader left the court along with his horse, amazed at the blind son's revelation. Now The last part for today's episode is part number 10, the jeweler. After a few days, a jeweler came to the king's court. He brought several precious stones and gems. The king liked a diamond. He gave it to the blind son and asked him to examine it. The blind son examined the diamond. He rubbed it between his palms several times. Then he said to the king, "Sir, the diamond is priceless, but it will be inauspicious for the one who wears it." The king asked, "Why do you say so?" The blind son replied, "Your Majesty, the diamond has taken the lives of at least 2 members of the jeweler's family." Hearing this, the jeweler felt ashamed of himself. He asked the king to forgive him. Then he left the court, along with his gems and precious stones. A few days later, the old man came back. He repaid the coins that he borrowed from the king. Then he asked the king for his sons. Now let us see what the king has to say on both the blind sons of the trader. Right? So we shall be back in the next episode and we shall continue the series of Vikram or Baitaal. Right? I hope you enjoyed today's set of stories in the episode Vikram and Baitaal, and we shall be back in the next episode soon. So stay safe, take care, keep listening to the stories, keep watching our episodes for some new stories ahead and new series of Vikram or Baitaal. Take care. Love you all children. Bye bye.